So here's your assignment for 4.2, common rational numbers, fraction, decimals, and percent. And what it says here is write each decimal in fraction form. So hopefully these are things that you can recognize from the tables that we've looked at and the patterns that we looked at as we go through. So you just want to match these up. So 0.125, you'll just want to get used to this. If you wanted to write that as 125 thousandths and then reduce that, I suppose you could do that, but it's a heck of a lot easier to recognize that as the common rational number 1/8. And then on this part of the assignment, it says write each fraction as a decimal. I'm hoping that you can recognize, like for the ninths, it's just the numerator repeated. So that's going to be 0.4 repeated. Then it says graph and label these numbers. So if we were going to do 0.4 repeated, that's tenths, 20, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, so about right here, and we want to label it with the original one, so this is going to be 4/9. I'll label it like that, and then 1/8 would be 0.125. That's going to be about right here, so that's going to be 0.125. And then all you have to do is just change each one of these and then label each one of them. That's 9 through 16. And then 17 is what patterns do you notice for each one of these. And then 18 is list the three ways you can write a negative fraction, negative 9/11ths. So hopefully you can do those pretty easily. And then on the back side, this is flipped sideways for a reason. It's got this table right here, and this is that we've got the only half, then thirds, 1/3, 2/3, 1/4, and 3/4. We don't put 2/4 in there because that's the same as 1/2. And it basically wants you to go through, and using something like this, it wants you to go through and count by halves and label where they are on the number line. So it says graph and put a dot by each rational number on the number line. Do all the halves, then all the thirds. So do the halves, then the thirds, then the fourths, and so forth. And be sure to graph 0 and 1 on the number line. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the halves. So if we were doing halves, we'd start with 0. A half is right there, and then we stop when we get to 1. And you can kind of visually see that this cuts it in half. If we do the thirds, 0, and then 1/3, remember, is 0.3 repeated, so that's going to be a little closer to 0.3 than 0.4. 2/3 would be 0.6 repeated, so that's going to be a little closer to 0.7 than 0.6. And then 1 is right there. So we've got 0/3, 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. And you'll notice that that kind of chops up that number line from 0 to 1 in thirds. And if we do fourths, 0, 1/4 was 0.25, 2/4 is 0.5, 3/4 is 0.75, and 4/4 is 1. Okay, so if you go through and see, you can see that we're kind of chopping up the number line into halves, into thirds, into fourths, and then so forth. So hopefully that helps make sense of that. Go through and do that, and if you spend some time thinking about those patterns and memorizing all these common rational numbers, you're going to be much better off in the long run. I did want to take a second to show something that's attached to the back of your assignment. You don't have to do anything with this. This is just a way to help you kind of organize in your mind the different ways that we can write these common rational numbers. So they're in fraction, decimal, and percent form. And it's kind of like the table that we filled out in the notes, but I've organized this differently. I've organized it in two different ways. So this side is organized by common factors in the denominators, and let me show you what I mean by that. So what I mean is, if we take a look at these fractions right here, we've got 1/10, and then we've got a fifth, and then a tenth, and then a fifth. So the reason these are all kind of organized together is because this would be 1/10, and 2/10 would be 1/5, 3/10, and then 4/10 would be 2/5, and so forth, all the way up to 1. Then I've got 1/6 right here. This would be 2/6, which is 1/3, then 3/6, which would be 1/2. All the way down to 5/6, and it's got the fraction equivalent here, the decimal equivalent right here. Notice the repeating decimals in some of these, and then the rounded percent if that applies as far as rounding goes. So I've got the sixth right here with the thirds mixed in there, and then I've got all the ninths. And notice that I repeated the 1/3 in there, so you can kind of follow that pattern through from 1/9 to 5/9 to 8/9 and so forth. I didn't include 9/9 because I figured one was enough there. And then I've got the eighths and the fourths kind of organized. So they're kind of organized by the common factors in the denominators, like fourths and eighths and halves go together. I do have some repeats on this side. You'll notice that this side is a little bit bigger than the other side. And let me show you how the other side is organized. This side it's the same numbers, it's organized in ascending order of the denominators, and what I mean by that is the denominator is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You can see that this is a lot smaller than the other side. It fits on one image right here. So for halves, we've just got a half, and the decimal equivalent is 0.5 and then 50%. And then for thirds, we've got 1/3 and 2/3. So we've got those organized together there. 1/4 and 3/4. I skipped the 2/4 because that would be the same as 1/2, and we've already got that. So the fourths that we haven't mentioned already are right here, 1/4 and 3/4. Then 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, and 4/5. Then the sixth, let's see, so 1/6 and 5/6. I skipped 2/6 because that would be the same as 1/3. I skipped 3/6 because that would be the same as 1/2, and 4/6 would be the same as 2/3. So those are the only ones that would be new here. And then the same type of thing happens with the eighths and the ninths. I only included the ones that hadn't been mentioned so far. So for example, we've got down here 1/10, and then I don't have 2/10. I skipped that because 2/10 again would be the 1/5. So I don't really care which way the way you memorize this or keep these straight. If this organization makes sense to you, where we're just going halves and thirds and then fourths, not including any repeats, or this one makes more sense where we've got, basically counting by tenths and then including the repeats and stuff like that. Either way is fine, whichever works for you, but these are ones that you want to be really familiar with because they come up so often. So work hard on recognizing those and getting those memorized.